Well, hello, everybody. Dr. Ron Oberstein, President of Life West, and thank you for joining us for another Life West Leadership Line. I've got a really special guest, and in another day, we could have been brothers. We see the same barber or use the same razor, whatever you want to call it. I got Dr. Xaivier Tipler with us today. He's a phenomenal chiropractor. If you haven't seen him or heard him, you will, I promise, in the next, a few years coming up. He's a leader in chiropractic. I'll give you a little bit of history about Dr. Xaivier. He practices in Overland, Missouri. It's just outside of St. Louis. Has a phenomenal practice. He was a three-star athlete in college. He played football, basketball, ran track, got involved. He'll tell us a story on how he got involved in chiropractic, doing amazing things. He sits on the board of Logan College. I think that they're very blessed to have him as part of their leadership there. He's also on the executive board of the American Black Chiropractic Association, ABCA, doing great things. He was just at Life West with them when you guys just had your conference there just a few months ago at Life West. And he also is one of the three founders of Evoke. And Evoke is a organization that is really helping minority chiropractors and students step into who they are and start becoming successful at what they're doing. And I mean, Xaivier, you're doing a lot, man. You're biting off a lot, and you're a family man, right?
I am.
Got has a family, and that's probably the biggest thing of all. That it's got a beautiful family and keeps that balance in life. So I want to welcome, Dr. Xaivier. Thank you for being here with us.
How you doing, Dr. Ron? I am glad to be here, man. I'm glad to talk to you again, man. It was a pleasure meeting you out in California a couple months ago.
Yeah, we had fun, man. That was a great conference at ABCA. And I'm excited. I'll tell you what I'm excited about. You're a leader, and as leaders come up, it's so different on leadership these days. It used to be, go back 40 years ago when I was just graduating, or 43 years ago when I started chiropractic college, there were single individuals that we were looking at.
Right.
Nowadays, it isn't like that. Nowadays, it's movements, that people are looking at. It's where do I fit in, right? That kind of thing. And I'm just so excited that you've taken that leadership role. And I really want to just thank you for that, because it's a huge
I appreciate
thing.
that, Doc. I appreciate that.
I know
it's
the
funny
time
that
it takes.
Yeah. It's funny when you talk about leadership, because even growing up, I never, sometimes as a leader, you don't wear that title on your forehead or say I'm a leader. A lot of it comes through the example that you set for others that are around you. And I think that's more so how I've stepped into some of the positions that I've been throughout my life. It's just the example that I try to set.
Yeah, well, share with us, because you're exactly right, and sometimes you're standing in line and they say whoever would like to step forward, to do this leadership job, and 9 people step backwards, but it's always perfect, because you're supposed to be there, and I know this, the work always falls to those who can handle it, right? The Creator doesn't give us more than we can ever handle, right? And
right.
And so I'm just glad that you're carrying a lot, and also keeping your balance with your family. Share with us, how'd you get in chiropractic?
Well, it's for me, I tell you, Ron, I grew up in an area where chiropractic was non-existent. I had never even heard of a chiropractor until my junior year in undergraduate school. And, I was a 3-sport athlete, and it took an injury playing basketball that actually kind of introduced me to chiropractic. I injured my back while playing basketball my junior year, and it was my senior year that I was actually walking across campus one day, and there was a recruiter from Logan. She stopped me and my best friend, Dr. Vault, which you're very familiar with. And she asked us what we knew about chiropractic. And I was like, absolutely nothing. I've never heard of a chiropractor. What do they do? And she gave us a little information, but she talked about the one thing that struck me was that she talked about the lack of minorities in the profession. So when she said that, it kind of rung a bell. It's like, not many of us in it, that may be something that, I may need to look into. So that was actually my first introduction to chiropractic. And then upon going to the school for a visit, and reading up on it, everything about chiropractic is what I feel like I stood for just throughout my life and everything that I had been through. So that was my introduction to chiropractic. And I went ahead and applied at Logan, got accepted, and this is where I am today.
Yeah. Well, you talk about leadership, and I think you said a very key word or key phrase. You said that she told you about chiropractic, and yet you heard that there wasn't a lot of, visible minorities in chiropractic, however she framed it, Black people, whatever it was, whatever you guys were talking about. And you said, I need to look into that.
Right.
Leader, if you're not a leader, you probably go in a different direction and say, well, that's not what I want to do. Right. And it's about making change. And I just want the audience to hear this, because I was just blown away when we had that conversation at Life West. In the middle of your schooling, you got pulled out because you were in the service, right?
I was, yes.
Yeah, and just share that. Just take a couple minutes and share that story, because I thought it was amazing. You talk about dedication, and being grounded and utilizing your environment and being adaptable, because that's chiropractic. Share what took place.
So, once I got into chiropractic school, I needed a way to pay for it. All through undergrad, I played sports, and that's what covered my education. But with chiropractic, it was a different animal, much more money. So I enlisted in the military. And I tell you, Dr. Ron, it was so crazy, because I went through basic training. I did my individualized training for the job that I had in the military, which was truck driving, by the way. Had nothing to do with health, nothing to do with chiropractic. I was a truck driver. And so when I got to Logan, my second semester is when 9/11 happened. And I remember walking out of the classroom, and, all these students, there was like one little game room area, had a big TV, and all these people gathered around. And I walk out of class and I go in there and I'm like, what's everybody looking at? And I get up to the TV and you see these planes crashing. And I'm like, oh my God, everybody, people crying, all these things. And there was a guy in my class. He was like, Tipler. He was like, you're in the military. He's like, man, you going to war. I said, nah, I'm just in the reserves. I'm not going anywhere. I'm in chiropractic school, and, this is where I'm gonna be. And lo and behold, 2 years later, the beginning of 2003, I remember I went to a luncheon with the president of the school. And when we left from the luncheon, we got back to the school. I was walking to my car and I got a phone call. It was, my sergeant, and he was like, Tipler, you got 72 hours to report to the unit. And I'm like, for what? He was like, we just got activated. And I was like, man, you can't be serious. So, my mind immediately just went to, I can't be going to war. This can't be happening to me. And, but, it actually happened. So I was pulled out of school. I went to do training for about 3 months, Dr. Ron. But that wasn't the end. After 3 months, they released us. I enrolled right back into Logan, started kind of where I left off. And then November of 2003, they activated my unit again. And this time we went off to Kansas. We trained for a couple months, and I was gone to Iraq, man, for about a year and a half.
Yeah. And thank you for serving, for serving our country. Obviously, those times were very, very difficult for everybody, right?
Yes.
But when you went there, what'd you take with you?
When I went, I had
this is what I love.
Of course, all my military gear and everything, but the two personal things I made sure that I brought with me was my Bible, one, and Stevenson's text, chiropractic text. And that's pretty much my reading that I had the entire time that I was over in Iraq. And it was back and forth between Stevenson's text and the Bible constantly. And those things kind of kept me sane. It kept me, one, reading the Bible, which was a Bible that I had since I was 16 years old when I was first baptized. That Bible had traveled everywhere with me. Wherever I went, I always had that Bible. So it went to Iraq with me. Because faith is one of the things that I know I needed. while I was gone during that time, but also only having a year left, less than a year left to graduate from chiropractic school. I just knew that wasn't the end for me. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't see God taking me through everything that I'd been through and not allowing me to go back and really finish out what he has set me out to do. So that's where Stevenson's text came in, and just being able to read that really kept me into chiropractic. It allowed me to share that with my unit, with everyone on the base. It was unreal, man.
You were apostolizing chiropractic to all to everyone. And listen, you had a captive audience, right? Because they're all on the base right there. I just love that story because, you know, you came back, obviously anyone who comes back from war is going to be a different person, but you came back a different chiropractor also.
I did. You know, one of the things when we talk to students a lot, Doc, it's the one thing that we want as students, and I remember this, is we want to get our hands on people and we want to adjust people and we want to learn the technique, the art of adjusting with our hands. When I was over in Iraq, I had more than enough soldiers to lay hands on and to really talk about chiropractic. I mean, it got to a point, Dr. Ron, to where the base that I was stationed at in Iraq, I was having soldiers from the far end of the other base that were hearing about this unit that had a chiropractor, which I wasn't a chiropractor, but I had a unit that really supported me while I was in school. During the weekends, I would go, you know, when I had my training, I always took my table and adjusted my entire unit. So of course I didn't have a table in Iraq, but when we got there, there was a maintenance section of my unit, and they scrapped together, man, plywood, 2x4s. They ripped seats out of trucks, covers and padding, and they built me a flat table while I was over in Iraq.
They didn't build it for you; they built it for them.
They built it for them, yeah.
But I love it, and you know, it just shows your dedication, and it shows that you kept the faith, obviously, you know, and you kept your purpose of what you're doing, and you were there to do a job, and you did your job when you were there, obviously, serving our country and doing what needed to be done. And you kept yourself grounded, you know, in that other piece, right? You know, chiropractic, you know, and I want to kind of, let's change gears. I love that story. Let's change gears and let's talk about the minorities, you know, because there's a state of healthcare, obviously, that you know, in minorities. I'd love you to kind of touch on that and share with us how you see that state of health, you know, healthcare,
right,
and health.
Yeah. So I tell you, man, that when I think about it, I'm heartbroken a lot of times, because every single day we look at the things that are happening around the world, but when you dive into the Black community, and when we think about chiropractic and the things that we talk about when it comes to health and being able to have true health and wellness from inside out, that's not educated to my community. A lot of the people that come into my practice are Black, and when they come in, they're the way that they're treated in this healthcare model is so different from the rest of the population. The medications that they're put on, the things that they're told that gives them no hope, that doesn't even give them an opportunity to think of anything different. And when it comes to health, stress plays a big part in that. So when we're talking about the emotional, when we're talking about the trauma, when we're talking about the toxicity levels in bodies when it comes to health, if you take anyone from the inner city, anyone from the Black community, and you go through a history with them, man, they're overwhelmed with all those stresses. So for me, that is my way, and I feel like I was put in chiropractic to kind of be that light, to touch those that I can, and share a different message, the message that our God wants us to know when it's related to our health and what He has put within the body. In order for the body to actually be healthy. With the body healthy, the mind can be healthy. And when the mind is healthy, we're healthy spiritually. And the body also benefits from that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we had a good friend of yours, Dr. Michaela Edwards, who's now the president of ABCA. And I had her on the leadership line sometime probably last year. And she gave a beautiful talk at a diversity forum that Life West sponsored. And she talked about the lack of trust for with Black people and white doctors.
Yes.
Right? But she took it all the way back to the 1800s and the midwifery and the whole thing, where it all kind of started. It just didn't start like in 1954.
Not at all.
And it's just amazing. And when you talk about that, you see the state of health in the minorities. They have the faith.
Yes,
they understand it. It's just no one's ever really been able to. They just haven't talked to them, I guess, or haven't educated them.
And that's what it is, Doc. Yeah. What we see, it's funny because Dr. Michaela was absolutely right when she gave that talk. It's amazing to see when people come into the office and, you go to most Black people, when we go to a doctor's office, we're already expecting the doctor to be some other race other than our own. So to see people walk into our facility and they're greeted by Black staff. And then when they walk to the back or they're walking around the practice, they see all these other people that look like them all over the place. And then when they get to introduced to the doctors and they see these are the doctors, it's like, yeah, these are your doctors. And I tell you, it's just an overwhelming joy that you can see their faces change.
Yeah.
Their expressions change. And, it's like, sometimes we just want to be comfortable in an environment where it comes down to something that we value ourselves, but it seems like no one else values it.
Yeah. And your practice, I think it's important for our audience to know your practice is 90% minority, right? Visible minority, from Latinx to Black to Asian to whatever. And then, 10 or 10% white, something around this, around
probably,
that. Right?
I would say 5 to 10% white. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it must be a amazing experience for the white people coming into your practice, right? Because they're coming to you because they were either referred to you or they heard about you or they saw something or saw you somewhere, whatever. What's their experience?
I can tell you this, Ron. So on our wall, when we give a tour of our practice, on one of our walls, we have our purpose statement. And it says, creating a reality of oneness in the hearts and souls of the Black community. And sometimes we have had white people that question and, ask, well, is this only for you guys only service Black people? And the thing that we tell them is, no, we don't. That's not all that we service, but we target and we focus on the Black community because of the state of health in that community. But we're open to seeing and we want to touch and reach everyone. And the reaction that we get from those people that come in, they're overwhelmed. They love it because they also see what's going on in the Black community. I mean, we can't be blind to the things around us, and they see this. So they really appreciate just what we do for our own community. They love it. So they even stay around because they want to be a part of something. So when you were talking about movements, they feel like they're a part of a movement that's going on in our practice.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing because it's all about health. And they get to experience. I mean, it's really interesting. I'm a white man, and I grew up in Detroit and I grew up 2 miles from Frank, from Dr. Vaught, and we didn't know each other, but I grew up 2 miles from him. And, yet when I walk into a place and I feel that I'm a minority, it's not often. When I travel, it happens. When I go to India to serve in India, I'm definitely a minority there. I stand out, and there's a feeling that goes along with that a lot of people don't necessarily understand, and
exactly.
I was said this at one point. This was a question that was posed to me as I was going through diversity training, and it was, just picture as a white man being in a bus station or a train station with 1,000 people, and you're the only visible white person there. Yeah. How would you feel? Doesn't mean you're being threatened, but what would it viscerally, how would you feel? It's just not having that comfortableness of what you're used to. right?
Exactly.
You know, let's face it, in the Black community, they call it the Black community because it's majority Black, right? You know, the white.
Right.
So I just love what you're doing and the lessons that can come on. And I love the mentoring, you know, that's happening. You know, you're mentoring, you know, I know you're mentoring students right now and you're mentoring doctors right now, but I also know you got a heart to mentor your community, right?
Definitely. You know, anytime that I can give back in any way, Ron, I'm Dr. Ron, I'm all for it. I just spoke to a group of students in East St. Louis. I don't know if you've heard much of East St. Louis, but you know, it's got the reputation of being very poverty stricken, a lot of crime, just an area that a lot of people, when they hear East St. Louis, they, oh, don't go over there.
It's a rough place, right?
It's a rough place. And there are a group of students, because their particular high school doesn't have college readiness courses. So there's a community center that allows these students, some of the top performing students, to get in programs where they get these college courses. I had the pleasure to go speak with them a couple of weeks ago and just really talk to them about leadership. I talked to them, a lot of them were looking and going into the healthcare field. So I talked about chiropractic and what it is that I do and everything that, involving that. So the following week, we had about 15 of them that came out to our practice. We gave them a tour. We had the staff talk to them. Some of our associate doctors were able to talk to them. And we adjusted every last one of them. And the thing that really caught my attention with them, after sitting and talking with them, they've never seen that many young doctors that looked like them.
Yeah.
They've never been into a business where it was clean, it was professional. Even the patients that were there were clapping for them and cheering for them, because those are the things that we like to celebrate in our office. I was like, to our patients that were up in there, I was like, hey guys, these are a group of students from, you know, this area. This is what they're in. Hey, this is what our youth is doing. This is what we want to instill in our youth. So it's empowerment. And to have the patients clapping for a group of high school students, can you imagine what that makes them feel like? Yeah. So, you know, what we do in chiropractic, it scales. Chiropractic is much more than just the laying on of hands, but it's the inspiration. It's the pulling that what's within us to the surface.
Man, I tell you, I'm inspired. I mean, it's like when you see that and you open up a pathway, and I think it's really important for us to just to share with our audience that, you know we got a problem in chiropractic when it comes to diversity, right? You know, right. We know, but we've recognized the problem. And I want every one of our viewers to understand that all the colleges understand it. The presidents understand it. We've had discussions about it. Associations know about it. You know, we've had these forums that we've done, and it's amazing stuff that we're doing behind the scenes that most people don't know about. I know you do, you know, right. Dr. Xaivier, because you're with us on this, but knowing there's a problem is the first step to correcting it, right? Exactly. And then when I see what you're doing, you know, bringing in the Black youth or bringing in, you know, any youth, right? And being able to share what chiropractic is, it's so important. I mean, you know, if we want to make a change, we need leaders like yourself and leaders like Dr. Everett and leaders like Dr. Frank to be able to go out and then talk to our students also. And I want you to share on that because, you know, you're talking about the high school students and other college students that you're with, but here you are mentoring, you know, the Black students and the minority students, not just Black students, but the visible minority students that are sitting in my school, sitting at Logan, sitting at all the other schools, you know, and well, let's face it, majority of our faculty, you know, are white, you know, and rightfully so on one level. And I just want to share this is because, you know, go back 20 years ago when I was in school, when you were in school, how many Black students were in school when you were there, when you graduated 15 years ago?
It was 2 that graduated in my class.
Yeah.
It was just 2 of us.
Yeah. And they went out, mostly yourself and one other went out probably to practice. You didn't stay to teach. but we're
Right.
building that because it has to build from somewhere to bring people in to teach. So but it's changing. But share with what you're doing, like, and what do and what kind of white doctor do, or a different doctor do, or with the Black students or the visible minority students to help along that path that you're teaching them?
Well, I think the main thing that like you said, we have to first recognize the problem. So the problem that we recognized a long time ago, we're in school, we're all searching because we went to school to come out, be successful, and be able to have a decent living, right? So when I graduated, we went to all these different conferences. I mean, Dr. Vault, Dr. Everett, and I, we were always at these conferences. And every time we were the only Blacks there in the crowd of thousands. And, the stories that we heard from all these greats in chiropractic was very interesting, but it was hard to relate sometimes because, my background and where I came up and how I was raised was totally different. So for us to start Evoke, we wanted to give an opportunity for Black doctors to be and hear from other doctors that look like them, that may have had similar backgrounds, that may have been through similar experiences that they can really relate to. You look like me, you come from the same place that I've come from, you've had some of the same experiences that I've had, you've had the downfalls, but yet you made it through. That's encouragement. So our goal in Evoke is to really give minority students that. We want to give them an opportunity to hear other doctors that look like them. We want to give them real life, what it's going to be like for you, because, being in school sometimes, I think you said it earlier, you're in an environment, you get identity crisis. If you're around a lot of white students and they're going to white clinics and you're going with them and you see how this office is ran, you get the idea of like, oh, I can do like this, I can practice this way. But, it's different when you get in and then those same white people that walk into your practice, because we've had this, where they come in and they see us as Black doctors and I'll schedule another time and we never see them again. So how do you deal with those things? We've had those experiences, and those are things that we can share and give a little more insight on to what actually happens in practice for a Black doctor. And that's what we want to help the Black students, the minority students, to understand as well.
Yeah. And a lot of white people, myself included, because I haven't experienced that, I hear it, I understand it, but I haven't experienced it. But I do want to relate something to our senior members of our audience. It's very similar to the days for white doctors when 40 years ago, when people would walk into your office and go, "Oh, you're a chiropractor? This is what you do." It's similar setup, right? And different, of course, because it's, there's something deeper into, on the emotional side of the racial side, right? But not being accepted, not being part of the norm, so to speak. I've always been enamored, with minorities, visible minorities coming into chiropractic, even from 40 years ago when I started, because what minority would want to join another minority? Because chiropractic has always been a minority.
Right.
It takes a special person, right? To say, I've been fighting, I've been struggling as a minority, and I'm going to get into this other profession. I'm going to be fighting and struggling, not being a Black person, but just being a chiropractor.
Being a chiropractor. And I think that goes back to what you said about being a leader, Doc.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And those are the ones. But I think that the troops are coming now. More people are coming now. Things are happening now, and as we see in our school, what's going on. We have right now at Life West, 47%, fluctuate about 47% about that is Caucasian. So our Caucasian students are a minority now, right?
Right.
But if you came into school, you'd think, wow, there's a lot of white students here because we have Latinxes, we have, Black students, we have Asian students, we have, and in the Asian students, we have different, mixes of Asian students. And it's, we have Pacific Islanders. It's, but it's just amazing. And it's so exciting to see as we start to grow our profession, we're always growing. But we're going to start taking it, because here's my thing. I care a lot about race. I care a lot about diversity and inclusion and equity. I have a heart for all of that. My biggest heart is making sure that every person on the planet has an opportunity to get their nervous system checked and their spine checked.
Exactly.
For
and that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And we can't do it because, as you said, I can't go into, if I go into the Black community, they might not come to me. They don't relate with me, right? Just like a white doctor going into a Black community, a white person going into a Black community. And we've got to bridge that gap. And that's what I love about what you're doing. And I want to thank you again, man. You and your partners, you and Evoke, you guys are doing phenomenal stuff. Last question I have before we sign off. Evoke, where does that name come from?
It's funny because when you think about evoke or evoking something, you're starting something and you're growing it and you want it to just manifest into something great. And because one, we're the first minority coaching management company that has existed in chiropractic. So one, that's the evoking and starting something. But again, it goes back to what you said, people follow a movement. So what we want to do is create a movement. And, with Evoke, we want to reach out to everyone. We want to focus on, again, the minorities, but we also need the schools. We need other organizations, the ACA, ICA, AVCA, all these organizations to understand the problem that we have, because if our goal collectively as a profession is to make sure that everyone is getting their nervous system checked, from a newborn to someone that's sitting in a nursing home, if that is to happen, then we need everyone understanding that and being on the same page. So we're just that piece to kind of help evoke and bring that message as well to the minority community.
I love it. Evoke potential. That's what I think when I hear evoke, it's evoke potential. Dr. Xaivier, thank you, man. I just appreciate you. And I appreciate, and I want you to thank your bride for allowing you to do what you're doing in our profession, because God knows it takes a lot to do that. And you're all over the country and you're traveling and you're all the boards you sit on. But more than anything, I want to thank you for inspiring and for bringing about a change, that you didn't necessarily ask for, but you stepped up to do. And I just want to thank you for that, because, with leaders like yourself, and like I said, I said at the very beginning to the audience, you're going to be hearing more about Xaivier Tipler and Dr. Frank Vaught and Dr. Everett. You're going to be hearing more about you guys and other people. You're on the rise. And I just appreciate it. Coming from a guy who's been in the game a little bit longer, I am so, my heart is warm, knowing that there's people like yourself and others that are moving and that are going to be, grabbing the wheel of the ship and really keeping chiropractic moving as it's supposed to. So thank you, man. I appreciate it. Last words.
Dr. Ron, I appreciate you having me on. I really do. I thank you for this opportunity. You got it. Hey, and to our audience, I want to thank you for watching us. Dr. Tipler's information is going to be flashing along the bottom of the screen. If you want to reach out to him, we'll have that on the bottom. But I just want to encourage every one of our listeners to make a commitment, to not just get the world under chiropractic care, as you all would love to do, but let's start reaching out to people, and also people who don't necessarily make up who we are, what chiropractic looks like at this moment, and ask them about being a chiropractor, share about being a chiropractor. And I'm not talking to you as the president of a college. I'm talking to you as a chiropractor who wants to see the world under chiropractic care. Yes. Reach out to Dr. Tipler and others and find out what you can do to make a difference also. So
thank you for listening to us today. Thank you for being with us. And I'll come back at you. Keep loving the people that you love and keep hugging the people that you hug to make sure that everybody feels connected, especially your families. And I will be back at you with another Life West Leadership Line. And I just know that we love and appreciate you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Xaivier. It was great.